Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. In our final conversation with Dr. Cristina Rosetti, she's the author of Joseph Musser, a Mormon fundamentalist, we're going to talk about the word of wisdom and how fundamentalists view it. It's not quite as strict as LDS. We'll also talk about how the race ban enters fundamentalism, and we'll talk about some of the newer schismatic groups from the 1970s onward. So check out our conversation. Is there anything else we want to finish with Joseph Musser?
The big thing that I hope people go away with is that people imagine fundamentalism being like old-timey. Joseph Musser died in 1954. Like, my mom was alive when Musser was. Like, this is not an old, like, this is a very recent separation. This is a very modern religion. That's something that I've tried to drive home so much, is that the Mormon fundamentalist movement is just another way of being modern Mormon.
Well, and it's funny because he's clean-shaven, too, on your cover there.
Yeah. He looks like a Mormon.
He looks like David O. McKay, practically.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, it's a modern religion. It's a modern form of Mormonism. It is not...
Because McKay was the first one to be clean-shaven, first LDS prophet.
Yeah, you always see the pictures.
Yeah.
Wasn't he also the one that really kind of, like, nailed down Word of Wisdom?
No, that was Grant.
As, like, a part of, like, the Temple Recommend?
Yeah.
It was? Because Grant also did the Do You Associate with People?
Right.
Heber J. Grant, am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but around that, because that also makes sense too, because fundamentalists don't have the same kind of vibe on the word. I mean, I had a beer at Bees.
Yeah, you can get your Journal of Discourses and your beer and your wine, right?
Yeah,
right
I sat there.
I took a picture and there was a picture, like Journal of Discourses and wine and beer right behind it.
Yeah, I had a beer at Bees. Like, no one else joined me, but I had a beer at Bees, and it was totally normal and fine. And it was so funny at Bees Market because Brian was wearing a John Y. Barlow shirt.
Oh, that was hilarious. I hope he wears that for my interview. I'm going to get Brian on.
Brian was wearing a John Y. Barlow shirt, and Brian went in to use the bathroom, and he was going to go buy water for me and a few other people. And I was ordering a beer, and this little girl runs after him. And it was so weird. And the mom runs and gets her. And one of the men at the table was like, "What happened?" And she was like, "Oh, she saw someone with John Y on their shirt." And the men were like, "Who was it?" And she was like, "I don't know, just some guy with John Y." And Brian comes out and he was like, "John Y Barlow's son is in there." Now, for everyone, John Y Barlow's son, or grandson, sorry, there are many.
Yeah.
Like, it's like when people are like, "Oh, I'm related to Rule and Allred."
Yeah.
You and the rest of the church. Like, I mean, not really, but these people have big families. Like, everyone's related.
Right.
Everyone's related. But, they don't do the Word of Wisdom the same. They can't, a lot of them drink alcohol at church.
Mild barley drinks are just fine. I
was told that actually means barley tea.
Oh, I thought it was beer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but an LDS person told me it was tea. Have you ever seen barley tea at the grocer? No, it's not real. It's beer. But yeah, they all drink. I don't know a lot of fundamentalists that will drink hard alcohol routinely.
Right.
Some will
wine's
do it.
Okay.
Some will do it medicinally. A lot of fundamentalists use wine for church, for sacrament. Wine of their own make. Like, they'll make it themselves. So it's very low alcohol. But they will do that. Some will do hard alcohol medicinally, but like to make tinctures and stuff. But I don't know a lot that will just like have a margarita on Tuesday. A lot will smoke tobacco.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I thought it was just for cigarettes.
It's not cigarettes, but like I have seen fundamentalists who will like smoke a pipe.
Huh.
And I think some of the reason for that is like, Mormon...
It wasn't a commandment.
Well, the Word of Wisdom, it's not a commandment, certainly. It's a guideline. But the other thing is there is kind of an interesting thing that the Word of Wisdom is really concerned with heat, like hot drinks.
Yeah. And
so there are some people that will interpret that the problem with tobacco is the heat aspect. And with pipe smoke is cooler because it goes through the pipe. And so like there is some
It smells so much worse though.
Pipe tobacco?
Yeah.
Well, my fiance, who's a pipe smoker, is going to have something to say about this interview. I think it smells better than cigarettes.
Yeah, I hate it.
Cigarettes are gross smelling.
They're both gross, but...
No, pipe tobacco smells like a tobacco candle. No, I think it smells fine.
Maybe I'm just used to cigarettes because people don't smoke pipes very
I mean, I don't smoke.
much.
I don't smoke. You saw me buy 2 boxes of wine at Peace. I go down. I shouldn't say that I bring alcohol across the border in an interview. It's cheaper in Arizona.
Because Utah taxes it too much, is that it?
It's cheaper in Arizona. You don't have to go to the liquor store. It's just, so if I'm down there, I might as well go to Pease and get...
Just go to the grocery store and get it, yeah.
Yeah, I do that.
It's everywhere but Utah, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always done that. Don't tell them my license number or my plate number. But yeah, that's very common. Also coffee. There's Beans and Brews. There's many coffee shops.
It was weird to me. Did you... Because they had self-checkout. I'm like, any teenager could go buy beer or
I was
wine.
not carded.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. So...
I don't know. But the word of wisdom doesn't mention coffee explicitly.
Right.
Or tea. It says hot drinks. What's a hot drink?
The community of Christ just says, let it cool. It's fine. Coffee's fine.
Yeah, I'm drinking an iced coffee right now, so I'm very compliant to the letter of the law. Not the spirit, but certainly the letter of the law. Because what is a hot drink? So they have very different... Fundamentalists generally look at it as it's good, sound advice. You shouldn't be like an alcoholic, but have a beer. It's fine. You'll be okay. And so there's a very different culture around alcohol and coffee, certainly in Southern Utah, and in any fundamentalist community. But you've been to Short Creek before?
No, that was my first time.
Oh, and you saw all the coffee, the alcohol.
Yeah.
There's a brewery. It's fine.
Yeah. Joseph had one.
Joseph had one. It's fine. Brigham did. Well, Brigham had the distillery.
Didn't know that.
Well, a little tiny crack in Rick's shell. But he also had the wine mission, the Utah Wine Mission.
Right. But that was for the sacrament.
With a wink and a nod. But and that was a big... When is the DNC about water?
I can't remember.
That's before Brigham's wine mission. Or no?
No, it's after. I'm pretty sure.
And isn't it because like an angel told them not to drink the wine?
I don't know.
Because it was like poisoned or something? Is that this? I don't either, but I have no reason to.
Yeah.
About why water in church.
Let's jump on to other things. But before we do, is there anything else on Musser you want to mention before we move on to other topics?
No, I just hope people recognize that there are significant intellectual contributions to Mormonism that aren't members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that there are people who, that when we imagine, I can't stress it enough, that modern Mormonism is so multifaceted and that the modern LDS Church became that in opposition to something. And it was the renegade Mormons in Southern Utah who were, for a brief period, they weren't giving the LDS Church a run for their money in terms of numbers, but when people were getting excommunicated, they had a soft place to land, and that was threatening. And so kind of reading through the 1930s period with an eye toward it, especially things like Heber J. Grant's comment of, do you associate with people against the church? He was talking about certain people.
Right.
He was talking about the polygamists.
We've always known that was about the polygamists. Sometimes I joke, I'm like, the Boy Scouts.
The Catholics. There's a whole, the 1930s, there's a lot happening, and it's a lot of different Mormonisms figuring out what's going on. And so I hope this book kind of lets people realize that modern Mormonism there's a lot of men vying for a very particular place and trying to figure out what is modern Mormonism going to be.
Yeah.
So with that.
Well, I want to move past Musser's lifetime just a little bit and talk a little bit about, we've got the AUB. So they incorporate in 79, which is an interesting year because that's right after 1978.
It is right after 1970. What happens then, Rick? you tell us more?
So we have the revelation that allows blacks to go to the temple and get priesthood.
Rick's
now.
putting a line in the sand, calling it a revelation.
It was a revelation. What do you mean a line in the sand?
Well, because if you're a fundamentalist, you wouldn't say that.
Oh,
So I was just saying that Rick's making
I'm
a faith claim.
I've never claimed
I
to
know.
be a fundamentalist.
No, I know. I know. I know.
But so, because it was funny talking with Joe Jessup, he said there are 3 pillars of fundamentalism: polygamy, Adam God, and the race ban. Now, that wasn't a deal when in the 50s when Joseph Musser died, so he didn't really talk about it.
No. So I wrote an article on this.
Okay.
On how it's called Not Until the Millennium, which is a quote from Rule and Allred. Because Rule and Allred's the first time people start talking about it. But that
Is that because of 78?
So I mean, it's a little before 1978, but I make the argument, I hope compellingly. I mean, certain fundamentalists have found it compelling and have found it interesting that I argue that Mormon fundamentalists did not care about that until the LDS Church started to think about getting rid of it.
Right.
And that, again, is the whole thing that fundamentalism is it's only a fundamental if there's people being modern. Like,
okay.
You're not if everyone believes Adam is God, you're not special if you do. If everyone's practicing polygamy, you're not special if you do. You only get to be a fundamentalist if there's people conceding to modernity. And so the race thing, when it wasn't an issue, it wasn't an issue. Suddenly it becomes one, and now it becomes a fundamental. But
right.
it's not a fundamental when everyone believes it.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be. And so Joseph Musser doesn't talk. I mean, Joseph Musser goes down to the Southern States Mission and he talks about seeing black people. I mean, does he ordain them? I mean, he doesn't say he does. I mean, he doesn't, right? He's not going to. But he doesn't say anything. He just talks about that there's African-American churches in the South, because that certainly isn't happening in his neighborhood in Salt Lake City.
Well, and they're not joining the church in the South, especially either.
Right. And so it's just kind of and certainly I do want to be clear that there were people making racist claims in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but they weren't they were very kind of like the standard racism of the 1930s, 40s, 50s. There were some comments about the priesthood ban, about priesthood being for white people because Brigham Young said so. But it wasn't a fundamental of the gospel until the LDS Church decided it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, and so it's really interesting. So Rulin gets shot in 1977 by one of Orville LeBaron's wives, right? And Orville LeBaron was going after everybody. I need to get a LeBaron person on one of these days. Because I've heard... Somebody said that the LeBarons are fine. Was it you? Except for Orville LeBaron.
This is a sweeping statement. Because there's going to be a quote somewhere. The LeBarons are fine.
Except for Orville.
Well, I'm saying that there are many forms of the LeBaron. Orville LeBaron's a bad man.
Right.
Orville LeBaron's a bad man. But there are many LeBaron churches. There are many LeBaron groups. And I do think it's an unfortunate...
And they don't kill people.
And I do think, I think it's an unfortunate reality that LeBaronism has been associated with Orville when there are other LeBarons that are just trying to live their life and be polygamous Mormons in Mexico and Utah and doing their thing. And so I would say that's kind of my claim, is that LeBaron's a bad man. But there are LeBarons, and not everyone with the last name LeBaron is part of this religion. And so I think there's an unfortunate conflation that has caused a lot of people with this name and with this tradition to be associated with him wrongly. So that's what I meant, Rick.
Okay. So Rule and Allred dies in 77. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we want to call this a succession crisis, but I know Gerald Peterson takes it up, well, from my point of view, and I have lots of Peterson friends, but from my point of view,
there's a lot of fudging of what's about to be said.
Yeah. So Gerald Peterson in April of 78, 2 months before the LDS revelation on priesthood, he proclaims himself leader.
Because? How does he do it?
Well, maybe I should ask you because I'm not.
Oh, it's because it's a great story. I mean,
oh, well, go ahead. You know it better than I do.
Well, I mean, so for the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren would say that Owen Allred succeeds Rulon,
his brother,
and that's the story. For now, after that, there's some kind of question about Lynn Thompson versus Lemoyne Jensen. That's fine, but Owen Allred takes it over. Gerald Peterson, Sr. There is a sense of the story where people say that he had like been ordained by Rulon previously. I haven't seen documentation for that, but the story from Gerald Sr. is that he was in his office one day, and Rulon appeared to him as a messenger, similar to like Moroni, and ordains him with the keys to continue the work. When that story comes up today, a lot of members of the group today talk about how he was ordained in life, if there was a precedent, and then this was a confirmation of the ordination from Beyond the Veil. And I want to be clear that this story of like a Beyond the Veil ordination is not unique to the Peterson group. The TLC has this story. A lot of people have similar stories to this. But it's Rulon Allred who supposedly appears to Gerald Sr. and ordains him to do the work. And that creates the split between what becomes the righteous branch and what is the AUB.
Okay.
And a lot of people who joined the righteous branch early are people who were AUB. Now, later after that, people will kind of look back on Owen's leadership and kind of note certain things that happened under Owen Allred as kind of a validation for why Gerald Sr. was the one that actually did have the keys. But that is the Peterson story.
Okay. And they're still a pretty small group. AUB's way bigger, and they just went with Owen Allred.
Narrow is the gate, Rick. I say that as a member of a 1.3 billion person religion.
So I'm trying to remember because there's the Nielsen Naylor group, and I'm not an expert on them at all. How do they fit in with this too? Because
they break from Centennial.
Oh, they break from Centennial.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know the reasons.
Okay.
I don't know the reasons for that.
Okay. So to recap, we've got the Allred Jeffs split in 1954.
What I'm calling the 1950s
The 1950s split. And then in 1986, the Centennial breaks from FLDS. FLDS don't formally incorporate until 91.
They're still called the Work.
Okay. So they're the Work until as late as 1991.
Yeah.
Wow. And so Centennial Park breaks with FLDS over one-man rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then AUB incorporates in 79 because they don't trust the LDS revelation.
On priest. And to be as well later, there also is an increased concern about early changes to the endowment. That is a secondary issue. The big issue is the priesthood ban, for sure, to be clear. Like that is the issue.
According to the AUB, allowing black people in a temple has now defiled the temple.
And it was apostasy.
Yeah. And so, because they were just fine with LDS temples until 78. Yes. And now...
Because the temple is a priesthood matter. It is owned by the church, but it's a priesthood matter because the ordinances that are happening in there are priesthood ordinances that are eternal, whereas the church is, again, just keeping the lights on. The problem is when you change anything related to priesthood, that big divide between the priesthood and the church, when you start changing you can change the church all you want, but you can't change priesthood matters.
Okay.
So ordinations, sealings,
and so that's
endowment.
Did AUB have an endowment house before 79, or is that when that was?
That's when they start doing endowments.
Okay.
And that is
now
a
the
unique
LDS church is officially in apostasy, and they have to build their own temple.
And that is a unique reality, is that because of men like Musser, because of how that line forms, because the AUB does get a lot of LDS converts, especially after the priesthood and temple ban is lifted. The AUB side, the Musser side, is the side that has temples or has temples or has endowment houses or has things like that. The FLDS did not have temples, or until Warren does his nonsense. But that was not part of the tradition.
Okay.
And of course, like people like Warren, leaders who will often say that people aren't righteous enough to have a temple, things like that, and the Lord will reveal it in time. But there also is like a historic sociological reality that the group that had the men who had all the ordinances are going to have the ordinances.
Okay.
Because, we don't have any evidence that Barlow had his second anointing. Barlow's excommunicated like right after his mission. So he's not living an LDS life in the same way Joseph Musser is.
Okay.
We don't have Barlow's diaries in full, so we're waiting. It's a waiting game.
We don't have them because they don't exist?
I'm sure they're in like family hands or something, but they're not as readily, they haven't been circulated in the same way.
Okay. And then Nielsen Naylor, you said broke off from Centennial Park. Mm-hmm. Do you know approximately?
No, I don't know a lot about them at all.
Okay. I got to talk to my friend Cyrus about that, I guess.
He would know. He would know.
He's really been trying to get me to go. Because they're in Bluffdale, too.
They are.
So.
They also have like a presence in Idaho, I think, and like Logan. Is that true?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Cyrus keeps talking to me about it, and I need to learn more about it.
Head on out.
But I'm excited because I just met is it Dave Watson?
Yeah. Last
week. So hopefully we might follow you up with him. We'll see.
You can tell me later. But he's the guy. Lynn Thompson passed. And
so Steve Mayfield was buried in Rocky Ridge.
Oh.
And he attended the funeral. Or not the burial. I don't know if he might have been at the funeral. I didn't see him at the funeral, but some at the burial for sure.
That's fancy.
Yeah.
I guess that is his community.
Cemetery plots are cheaper in Rocky Ridge than they are in Layton.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you're about to do a big reveal about Steve Mayfield's religious.
No, I always thought it was funny because Steve's a police officer and he's friends with a bunch of polygamists. I was like, So it kind of shows we don't prosecute polygamists anymore.
And he had the president of the priesthood at his burial.
Yeah, big deal. So.
Yeah, Dave Watson, Brother Dave came to. He came to the book launch or the book event that I did at Benchmark. Which was great. He was so kind about it. He was so kind about the book. And he also came to MHA the first time I talked about the book at MHA in 2021. Yep, 2021. And he had he answered some, like one of the long-standing questions is Joseph White Musser is early records in the church, in the LDS church, say Saint Joseph White Musser, and his funeral records don't say that. His funeral records just say Joseph White Musser, and so there was kind of this like interesting question of like, why do his church records say Saint, which is that's not something LDS people do.
Right.
And he said that was the name given to him at his blessing, like his baby blessing. His dad stood up and said Saint.
Oh, really?
And so. Can you imagine the church historian Amos Milton Musser names his child Saint Joseph White Musser? And so at that would be his baby blessing, the name he was given at his baby blessing. And so it was on the church records, but it wasn't like his legal name, which is an interesting thing that happened. So that,
like
I know.
St. George.
Yeah. And so I know that because, I thought it was like an honorific maybe. Yeah. Brother Dave is the reason that I know that. And he's been, he was very supportive. And the AUB archive that they're building out and working on with Marianne and a few other people has been.
And Steve just donated his records there too.
Yeah, it's been. I'm really impressed with the way they're building out their archive. And Brian and I met with them because we're doing the diaries, and so that was really good. They actually are on the back cover says Deseret Historical Archives because they gave me the picture, the high resolution image of Joseph for the cover of the book. So this is courtesy of the Apostolic United Brethren. They are the one that have the rights to this, and it's on the back. It says their archive. So I was very grateful because I only had kind of a low resolution, and they had the high res image. So that was really kind of them to offer. So I'm really impressed with what they're doing up there.
Yeah, well, very good. All right. Well, I think that brings us up at a modern day Is there anything else? You know anything about the Thompson group or any of those other ones?
The Joe Thompson group. I mean, you can have a Joe Thompsonite on for that story. There's a lot of them. People are moving to Missouri.
Moroni Jessup talked a little bit about, because he was part of the Thompson group for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we did a Sunstone presentation on the racial restrictions, the temple ban, and will fundamentalists, will they not? Will they ever lift it? Will they not? I would be surprised. I mean, Rule and Allred very specifically said not until the millennium. Rulin said not until the millennium when all the sons of Abel receive the priesthood.
Well, that's what Brigham said. He must have been quoting Brigham.
Probably. I mean, and I've heard that from young members of various groups. So I can't imagine. But I mean, I think Moroni is doing great work on that front. So and then of course there are many groups that emerge without any connection, like the TLC. Like we do get groups that just emerge out of what seems to be the ether, but they have some claim in some regard.
I'm going to have to get your contact list so I can.
Or like the LeBaron group, which goes back to Benjamin F. Johnson, which is like not related to the Wooleyite group at all.
Right.
Or the Kingston group going back. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Kingston group going back to Eldon, which is not related at all to the Woolley group, even though they like considered joining the Woolley group for a while, but they didn't. Multiple stories about why they didn't, but everyone has a different perspective on why they didn't join. So there are groups that are standalone. The LeBarons and the Kingstons are the two biggest, and that amounts for just the diversity of the fundamentalist movement. And then you have like that guy that wore bell bottoms.
Greg Brady? No, I don't know.
No, the guy that wore bell bottoms. Joseph. He did the Confederate States of Zion or something.
I don't know who that is. You're the polygamy expert, not me.
Oh no. He was a polygamist. Oh no. Hold on. Confederate Zion Mormon. Oh no. I'm just gonna type in. I don't know. If I type in Joseph Mormon, that's not coming up. But yeah, there was like a 1970s hippie-ish Alex Joseph.
And who's he?
He founded the Confederate Nations of Israel, and he was the mayor of Bigwater, and he was the first Libertarian Party mayor mayor of a community in the United States. And he was a Mormon fundamentalist, and he wore bell bottoms. I don't know why I'm so fixated on the bell bottom thing. I'll show you a picture, and you'll tell me you'll be like, yeah, you're not wrong. But he was a Mormon fundamentalist libertarian in Utah. See, look at this picture. See?
Oh wow, yeah, those are bell bottoms for sure. And he does look like a hippie.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's groups like that spring up, but yeah, it's a diverse movement. The biggest tracing themselves to the council, but other than that, it's just I mean, that's the interesting thing about Mormon priesthood, is if everyone has it. I mean, there is no substantial difference between your priesthood and Russell Nelson's, other than your ability to exercise certain aspects of it. But the priesthood's the same.
Right.
And so who's to say that Rick
when
Bennett...
you have an angel come to you, like, who's to say?
I mean, who's to say that you don't have all the keys? It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But that is the compelling thing about Mormonism, is how do you, like I mentioned with the priesthood, is chaotic. How do you make sure that it's not chaotic?
One man rule.
It turns out really well.
All right. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Not on my end. I think that's it.
All right.
Buy the book.
Yes.
From Benchmark, etc.
Joseph White Musser, a Mormon fundamentalist. You can get it at Benchmark, Amazon. All the good places.
It's on Kindle now, too.
Oh, yeah. Do you read it?
Did I read it?
For the Kindle?
No, I don't
Or
know.
do you have it? Is it an audio book or no?
No audio.
Okay.
I don't think anyone wants me to read. Fundamentally, the earth with all its contents belongs to God. It is his heritage. Like, I don't think people want me to read this. I don't think people want me to read this. Yeah, you can buy it at Benchmark, you can buy it at Amazon, anywhere books are sold.
All right.
Barnes & Noble, weird.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Costco?
We're going to try to get it into B's.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it'll probably sell pretty good there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Cristina Rosetti, congratulations on your betrothal. I found out that was different than regular engagement. It's actually a ceremony. I'll see if I can get a picture from you. And we're going to miss you here being in St. George. And are you going to MHA in June?
No.
No, that's a bummer. All right. Well,
I am one of the program chairs, though.
oh, well, we hope that you'll retire like Michael Jordan and do it 3 times or something, because we'd love to have you here in Mormon Studies and appreciate all the great work you've done.
Thanks so much, Rick. I mean, and thanks for all of the great work you do with having such a diverse podcast and doing so much for the study of Mormonism. Thank you.
Well, thanks. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Cristina Rosetti, author of Joseph Musser, a Mormon Fundamentalist. So get that at Benchmark and all the other bookstores, Amazon and everything. Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt. So check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.